And this is an argument our ancestors have argued to death, studied to death for centuries. And we find this literally exact discussion that we started off with in the pages of Talmud in a tractate called Kiddushin, where it says, Rabbi Tarfon and the elders were once reclining in the upper story of Nitza's house. I just wanted to include that because I think it's a beautiful detail in the Talmud of like just setting the scene for you. It was in Lod, if you've been to Israel, when this question was posed to them, which is greater, study or action? Rabbi Tarfon answered, saying, action is greater, no question. Rabbi Akiva answered, saying, study is greater. All the rest agreed with Akiva that study is greater than action because it leads to action. And I'll try to believe that the reasoning is exactly what you, Elisa, were sharing, that if we act without knowing why we're acting, or knowing how to actually act, it can create some dangerous situations. Like many things in our tradition, though, you can find supporting proof texts for both sides. A verse that defends the opposing view that action is more important is found in Pirkei Avot, a collection of wisdom from the Mishnah. So it says, it is not the study that is essential, but rather the action. So it's very clear. But we just heard from the rabbis of the Talmud that said study was more important. So which is it? How do we decide? I don't know. This week's Torah portion happens to take a stance on this debate, even if the Torah portion itself isn't aware that it's taking a stance on this debate. But in Parshat Tetzaveh, which begins immediately following the instructions to build the physical space of the Mishkan, our Torah shifts its focus onto what will happen inside the portable sanctuary. What will Israelite worship look like? And what might you think would be the first thing explained regarding worship in the tabernacle? In ancient Israel, in their portable sanctuary, what might you think would be the first thing that they want to explain to the people how they'll do worship? Any guessers? You don't have to. Boundaries? That's really interesting. I love that answer. Anyone else? Spoiler alert, it's the menorah. So why do they talk about the menorah first, the Ner Tamid? The priests haven't been ordained yet, so there aren't even people to perform these actions yet. They haven't outlined all the various sacrifices, and the first which sacrifices are very important to ancient Israelite worship. But the first instruction that's given is the lighting of the menorah. Aaron and his sons, who are not yet ordained as priests, are tasked with physically keeping the light kindled, but it's the Israelites who are commanded, bring clear oil of beaten olives for lighting, for kindling the lamps regularly. And I may or may not have watched some YouTube videos about how to make olive oil today, and wow, that's a lot of work. So, and I also read that, interestingly, usually there was a special lamp kind of oil, and so the fact that it asks for clear oil is like asking for a step up for this special lamp. That's an aside. So why is it that the first requirement for Israelite worship mention is the fuel needed to keep the Ner Tamid, the eternal flame, ablaze? And what does it have to do with study or action? It's a fair question, my friends. Our sages argue that this is the first commandment given regarding Israelite worship because in Judaism, we repeatedly see the image of a lamp used as a symbol for words of Torah. The Midrash teaches, see how the words of Torah give light to one who studies them, or enlightenment if you'd like. Those who study Torah give forth light wherever they are. It is like one standing in the dark with a lamp in his hand. It continues, when he sees a stone, he does not stumble, neither does he fall over a gutter because he has a lamp in his hand. And as it says in Psalms, your word is a lamp to my feet, a light for my path. So here is an argument that we find in this teaching that casts its vote for the side of study over action. Study is what gives us the light. We have another rabbi, Elazar ben Azariah, in Pirkei Avot, chapter 3, who writes that one whose wisdom exceeds his deeds is compared to a tree with many branches but few roots. What happens to those trees? Yeah. However, one whose deeds exceed his wisdom is comparable to a tree with few branches but many roots. After all, Rabbi Azariah says, a tree without many deep roots can easily be toppled over by a strong wind. He votes for action over study. So for the tiebreaker vote, I thought we could hear from the book of Esther. since this Torah portion is read on the Shabbat immediately preceding Purim. Looking at the story of our dear heroine, it is unclear how Jewishly learned she actually is. What we do know about her, though, is that she values her people and doing what is right, even if she's hesitant at first. We can look at Esther and we can say, why didn't she act right away? Why was she scared? I think we all can relate to those feelings as well. But she does eventually do the right thing. And I'd say that's a vote for action. But to prove it to you, I want to talk about the meaning of Esther's Hebrew name. So does anyone recall Esther's Hebrew name offhand? So Esther's her Persian name. You guys are so learned and brilliant. Thank you. Hadassah. So the word Esther means hidden, but her Hebrew name Hadassah means myrtle. Yes, like the tree. So myrtle has significance in Jewish tradition. It's one of the 4 species of plants that make up the lulav at Sukkot, along with willow, palm, and etrog. There's a rabbinic teaching we often share on Sukkot that looks at each of the plants and compares them to a different kind of person. The etrog has both good taste and pleasant scent, and it's said to represent a person who does both good deeds and studies and does deep learning. The palm branch has taste but no smell and represents a person with wisdom but lacking in deed. The willow has neither taste nor smell and represents a person who does neither good deeds or deep learning. But it's the myrtle that symbolizes one who has good deeds but lacks learning. In Sukkot, we say we hold them all together because it takes all different kinds of people to make a community. But here, the word that Hadassah, the word that is Esther's Hebrew name, is the myrtle. It's the person who does the action regardless of what kind of learning they have. It doesn't mean they have zero learning. They just might not have much. It is Esther's ability to take careful action that saved the Jews of Shushan. This is not to say don't study. I'm a rabbi after all. Like, we all are super Jewish nerds. Rabbinical school is just like, hey, what more can I learn? Sorry if that made it not sound fun. It's also fun. Our Jewish learning is so sacred and significant to us as a people. But like the oil in the lamp, without the flame to light it, also known as our actions, it makes no impact. You just have oil. What we do outwardly shows our light within. If our actions aren't connected to the greater good, which, if you study Torah, is exactly what it will encourage you to do, then we aren't actually living Torah. We're merely studying it to death. As Rabbi Greenstein often reminds us here, it's why the mosaic in the sanctuary is a semicircle, because we have to take what we learn within these walls and apply our values through action outside these walls, which it sounds like is a lot what you all are doing with your class as well. Whereas in the previous Torah portion, each contribution to the building of the Mishkan is a one-time offering, this requirement of bringing oil to light the menorah is continuous. They always have to continue doing it. And interestingly, at least to me, again as a rabbi who likes to study, when the ancient temples were destroyed, all of the other commandments regarding temple worship became obsolete. They didn't matter anymore. We don't follow any of those practices. However, the Ner Tamid, which we have in our sanctuary today, is the one thing that remains of ancient Israelite worship that is with us today. And why is that? Because it is a reminder that if study does not lead to action, it is not true study. And that being a contributing citizen is our continual obligation, something we have to renew and do every day. Our symbol of the eternal light reminds us that as Jews, it is our duty to shed light on the darkest parts of our world outside this chapel. And like Esther or Hadassah, respond to it. May the season of Purim remind us that Torah, the greatest gift our people ever received from God, was intended to inspire action. May we, like Esther, have the courage to act. Shabbat Shalom.